Hi everyone, and welcome along. I started out this project determined to remember the work of National Screen Service in Perivale. I used to phone them almost every week for trailers and quads back in the 70s and 80s. Fond memories of John Young and Brian McElmail in the 80s. Now, I always thought that National Screen was quintessentially British, and it was only when I started researching this video that I even realised it was part of a much bigger organisation. So today I start with the US first, as it forms an essential part of our NSS history. The National Screen Service, NSS, was founded in the 1920s in the USA as a competitor to the big film studios in the creation and distribution of movie trailers. In the 1920s and for most of the 1930s, studios produced and distributed their own film posters. The invention of talkies in the late 20s caused an explosion in the popularity of films and made the task of film advertising a serious business. The National Screen Service maintained a focus on movie trailers until in late 1939 they signed a contract with Paramount Pictures to produce and distribute a majority of Paramount's movie posters and other advertising materials. Eventually, NSS cut deals with all the major studios and independent filmmakers to produce and distribute film posters too. RKO signed with NSS in 1940. Lowe's followed in 1942. Universal in 1944. Columbia in 1945. United Artists and Warner Brothers in 1946. And finally, 20th Century Fox in 1947. Now, NSS had established several regional offices throughout the United States. In 1943, after losing a legal battle relating to monopolising the market, NSS subcontracted with a number of independent exhibitor exchanges throughout the country. These independent exhibitor exchanges would get their movie paper from NSS and distribute or rent them directly to theatres. Theatre owners would simply come to one of the NSS offices or one of the independent subcontractors to get their advertising materials. If they were rented, they would be returned after use for credit towards other advertising materials. In an effort to regulate and control the materials going through it, NSS established a dating and coding system. This control system was actually established earlier for handling trailers, but then crossed over to all the paper as well. An NSS number was stamped on all paper distributed through them. In addition, a special stamp was used on the outside of the materials. NSS also printed the NSS tag on all materials. This tag basically set the guidelines for the use of them. The materials were on loan only and were to be returned. NSS would also indicate variations such as advance, style, awards or review. Apart from a few years in the 1940s and until 1977, the numbering system initiated by NSS featured two numbers representing the year of release, and after a slash mark, there would be a number indicating when the film advertised was released in that year, numbered in sequential order. Therefore, the 60th film released in 1975 would be numbered 75/60. After 1977, the numbering system was altered to get rid of the slash mark dividing code. The lack of an NSS number on a vintage one sheet, half sheet, insert, 30x40 or other US movie poster printed during the NSS era, 1940s to 1980s, is something that a collector should take note of. There are a number of vintage original US movie posters that were produced by the studios themselves that are just as authentic as the ones produced by NSS. These were often advance posters self-produced by the studios for promoting a film or produced as a giveaway, and while authentic, weren't printed for distribution to cinemas. Posters printed in the United States for use outside of the country also did not include an NSS number. Now, the mid-80s saw a slow but drastic change in the movie industry. Individual screens gave way to multiplex theatres and multiple screens. With more than one film sharing the lobby's advertising space, there was less room for each screen to promote the film. A total readjustment of the advertising materials had to take place. This readjustment caused the phase out of certain sizes of materials, including half sheets, 3 sheets, inserts, 30 by 40s, 40 by 50s and lobby card sets in the USA. With fewer sizes to deal with, movie studios began to control their own movie paper advertising, thus causing the phase out of many NSS offices around the USA. By the end of the 1990s, there were only 3 regional offices remaining. Now, a small percentage, approximately 15% of the movie paper advertising materials, were still being handled through these offices. As of September 2000, the remaining NSS offices were bought out by Technicolor. They plan to continue operating them with particular emphasis on the one sheet. NSS and theatres in the UK preferred the quad crown poster, or 30 by 40. NSS established an office in London in 1926. During the war, production was moved to the London suburb of Perivale. They were the complete package, creating trailers, main titles, end titles, optical effects, posters and publicity materials. 3 directors of the UK subsidiary subsequently bought the company in 1987. National Screen Service, NSS Limited, was arguably one of the biggest film studios in Britain. Between 1926 and the mid-1990s, almost every film trailer shown in Britain passed through its doors. Most British films had trailers written and produced by the NSS production team. NSS re-edited all American and other international trailers to meet the censorship requirements of the BBFC, the British Board of Film Censors, or the different promotional needs of British distributors. NSS teams worked closely with David Lean, the Bolting Brothers, John Huston, Michael Winner, Stanley Kubrick and Ealing Studios, and they produced all the James Bond trailers. At its peak from the 1940s to the late 1950s, NSS produced around 600 unique trailers a year, distributed almost 9,500 trailer prints a week, and 4,000 to 5,000 titles and teasers, to over 4,000 cinemas, to be seen by 25 million people each week, or you could say 1.3 billion people a year. Now, I think it's fairly fair to estimate that more audiences saw these NSS-produced trailers than any other film in British cinema history. Yet, despite this activity, few audience members would have known they were watching a National Screen Service production. Fewer still would have been able to identify the company. In the years since, NSS remained as ephemeral and elusive within British cinema history as its main output, the film trailer. In the 1980s it became National Screen Service UK, and NSS closed in 2007. But one of those posters that in the 60s were labelled with the following: copyright NSS and is licensed for display at the theatre only. At the end of the period, the material must be returned to NSS or satisfactory evidence of destruction furnished on demand. One can only assume that this was because NSS were entrusted by film distributors with copyright material, and that notice served to cover NSS against any unlawful selling of the material by the staff at the cinemas. If you know different, let me know in the comments below. So now that we've cleared that up, let's take a look at some of the superb work of NSS in Perivale, the relatively unsung heroes of film promotion. Let's honour those staff we've named, the staff on the images you've seen in this video, and all the others over the years we haven't found, with a look back at a couple of the trailers produced in that studio in Perivale, Greenford in Essex. I will leave you with these trailers, and I'll see you soon. Ta-da.
Barrett? If I hear from you again, I shall inform the police. Do you understand? That's absolutely final.
What thread of strange emotion puts this brilliantly successful barrister on the wrong side of the law?
Well, if you dig this over, it could end in one hell of a scandal. And it wouldn't only be you who came down.
Fear is the oxygen of blackmail. Barrett was paying, others are. Find me one.
What crime links him with this frightened boy on a building site? And why is he afraid? Why do some people help him? Some people turn away in disgust.
Why can't he stick with his own sort? You can come home Frank Jeffries when you've got rid of him.
What sinister shadow from the past now falls between husband and wife?
When we were married, we had no secrets from each other. I made you a promise then. I haven't broken that promise, if that's what you mean.
What secret held these men prisoner in a tangled web of tyranny and terror?
I think we'll have a little privacy.
What crime linked an aging hairdresser and a famous star of the theater?
This is... And I may be mistaken, but... Do you ever receive an envelope like that containing a demand for money?
They are all victims. Victims of what?
Look how he's behaving now. What's happened to his integrity? Mel's to become a QC, Laura. Eventually a judge, even. Is he going to sit on the bench knowing that he himself has covered up a serious crime?
They're going to call me filthy names. My friends are going to lower their eyes, and my enemies say they always guessed. I don't want you a part of that Roman holiday. I love you too deeply for that.
A man they call the dream maker comes to you at close of day. He will take you for a trip to the moon or a ride on the Milky Way.
It all happens at a flourishing disc recording company, and what happens is enough to make you slip a disc.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry, sir.
You'll see Michael Medwin as a big, brash boss. That some people girl, vivacious Angela Douglas.
It's just that I don't understand how you let people trample all over you and why you're so ill at ease with people and that you're always coming out with all these...
And love is what happens to her. Lovely, compact girl Jean Harvey is now a kind of secretary.
Look, Delia, you are an extremely able-bodied... You are an extremely able secretary, but you are not irreplaceable.
If you would just...
It's all happening. Like spring, laughter breaks out all over.
I make Dutton from the pool.
Oh, blimey.
It's all happening. Songs like these from Tommy.
Beans on toast, kipper grilled, bread and jam, piece of cake, etc., 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 etc.
And how's this for a lineup of etceteras? Bernard Bresslaw. And these top liners. The popular Clyde Valley Stompers. Top American singer Dick Calman. Shane Fenton and the Fentones. Johnny Dolittle. Those famous music men John Barry and Jeff Love. Then there's Danny Williams and how he sings.
Till you return, what can I do?
Russ Conway and how he plays. And here's that personality girl, Marion Ryan.
Love a man and he's a king. Ooh, what the heck? He's everything that's living. That's loving.
And that Maximum Plus Entertainment, The George Mitchell Show, with Tony Mercer, John Bolton, Di Francis.
Oh, how do you know it's summer? The sights that you see on the beach. If you whisper to the dream maker all the things you want to do.